Welcome to the Supported Living Property Podcast with your host, me, Lisa Brown, the place to learn about supported living property investing. Hi Ruth, it's great to have you here today. How are you?
I'm good, thank you, Lisa. Thanks very much for inviting me.
No, it's great to have you on. It's really good to have you here. For people who don't know you, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, of course. So my name is Ruth Hunter. I own Veritas Property and I'm based in Cheltenham, and I invest in HMOs, and we've just done our first supported living property with a charity in Cheltenham, and we also invest in Gloucester as well. So yeah.
Fantastic. And that's what we're going to talk about today, isn't it? Is that experience of doing your first supported living property. And we've just been chatting about it a little bit, haven't we? And the bumpy ride it can be a little bit in doing that. So tell us a little bit about how you got into property, how you got into doing supported living. How did you end up where you are now?
Yeah, well, basically, so my main business, I've been a wedding and event stylist and planner for God knows how many years. And I actually started getting into property about 5 years ago with my first flip, bought at auction. Business grew quite quickly. But then we all know what happened over the last couple of years. So obviously my business was hit really badly, but it was illegal to go to work overnight. And my husband is in the hospitality field. He's an operations director. So he was actually made redundant as well. So instantly overnight, we had no income. And so we had to make some pretty big life choices. So we decided to sell our beautiful Cotswold cottage because it had equity, and I just said we needed something more secure. So with the training that I had with Simon Zucci, then I was able to purchase not one but two HMOs using a vendor finance deal. And then I found another property in Cheltenham, and because of the way that I put myself out on social media and started building up the brand, actually one of my personal contacts from the area that I live in is a housing officer for a charity. And we just started talking about the opportunities of actually working with them to provide them with housing that they need for vulnerable people. And so one of my big things with regards to investing in the HMOs, from the off, I didn't want to just have a cash flowing asset. I wanted it to actually help and benefit and enhance people. So my HMOs are designed using biophilic design, which is where we use nature to influence the indoor spaces. And also, as far as I'm aware, from what I've been told, I'm the first private landlord to actually introduce a tenant support service where all of our tenants get mental health care packages. So they actually have ongoing and unlimited counselling support. So in the event they get into trouble, they've got that as backup. And it just kind of made me realise that there was a much bigger opportunity to not only change our lives, but to invest in property where we can change other people's lives. And so that's where I found Supported Living Gateway and community there, and obviously listening to all your podcasts and doing the conferences. And I do think it was actually possibly one of the first conferences that you did that I joined. And I just thought this is definitely something that fits with me and fits with my ethos. And so then I sort of went down I basically then started a journey on how can I make this happen. So I found a property which I thought would work for the charity because they had quite specific needs and what they needed.
So they gave you quite a clear kind of brief of what they wanted, did they, Ruth?
Yeah, and I think the problem that the charity had was, so one of the first things was that they were no longer going to do the regular HMOs because of COVID. It was just causing too many problems for them. So they decided that they needed accommodation which was self-contained and didn't have shared social spaces, basically. So they wanted kitchenettes in all of the bedrooms. So I found a property which we could adapt. We had to knock some rooms together, etc. But we found a property that would accommodate that from minimum room sizes, etc.
With ensuite bathrooms too?
No, so these were basically, it was two people sharing one bathroom facility, and they were happy with that. They were happy with that side of things. It was just the kitchens and social spaces. And so, I found the project. So I had the charity, I had the property, then I needed to find the funding. And that's where that led me to my wonderful joint venture partner, Richard, who has used his SAS pension to invest in the project.
Oh, fantastic. How did you find him? How did you come across? Was he someone you knew already?
Me. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, whether or not, and now I was trying to remember, I was trying to find posts, whether it was just through a general property group or whether it was actually from the supported living gateway group. But he found me talking about the charity and the property and opportunities and contacted me directly and said, I'm actually really interested.
Great.
And it took a good few months, obviously, to just build that rapport and the relationship. But we hit it off instantly. Anyone who knows Richard Perry, you'll know that you hit it off with Richard very quickly anyway. And yeah, he just really believed in the same things that I wanted to achieve. So we got there in the end, but working with SaaS, we'll come to that. It's not for the faint-hearted.
We might as well talk about that now. Well, why? What was the experience of working with someone? So he had a SaaS pension. So that's a small self-administered scheme, isn't it? A pension scheme that he was looking to deploy the funds and invest them with you. Yeah. So that sounds straightforward, Ruth. Why is that challenging?
Oh, yeah, cool. Just hand over your money and it's fine. So anyone who doesn't understand what a SaaS is, it's a very heavily regulated pension scheme, which you do have control of what you do with that money to a point, but you have a trustee who is there to guide you and for you to make the right decisions so that you are compliant with HMRC, as you can't hold residential property in the SaaS. Now, because Richard was fronting the deposit and the renovations, it wasn't a typical joint venture as such. So where you could do a joint venture with a SaaS if they are fronting all of the money, that's a very simple SPV. You set it up collectively and the property is held within the SaaS. So we were given quite a lot of wrong information, shall we say, with regards to how to set the company up in the first instance. Mm-hmm. So offer is in on the property, I'm speaking to planning and dealing with all those kind of areas. So that was fine. But just the actual how to purchase the property together with a SaaS caused 4 months delay.
Wow.
So okay. I've got the vendor going, what's happening? And I'm like, it's fine. And in the end, we were told to do a PPL, an LLP, limited liability partnership. That didn't work because there isn't anybody in the SaaS who can personally take responsibility for signing documents.
Right.
So the trustee, the corporate trustee, wasn't willing to sign documents, like the mortgage offer and those sorts of things. And Richard couldn't because he can't actually be connected to the project.
Right.
Or to the property. So we spent ages getting that set up and sorted. For the banks to say no, they won't give us a bank account. The mortgage companies are just going, we don't understand, it doesn't work. The trustees weren't willing to sign anything, and it was just such a waste of time. So we ended up having a big meeting with the trustees, my brokers, the solicitor, like everybody. I just called a meeting and I just said, how does this work? Because this has got to happen now. Other people have done this. But I think the difficulty was that it wasn't fronting the whole project. So in the end, the agreement was that Richard has actually given me a third-party loan personally. I have been given that as a director's loan to Veritas Property, who has bought the property, and Richard has second charge on the property. And then Richard and we actually have our own agreement with regards to ownership, etc., of the property.
Right, okay.
So we got there in the end. But the whole purchase, because of that, we missed stamp duty holidays twice. It was really frustrating. So the whole process took 7 months in the end.
Okay, fine. And then you've got the building and you've bought it. By this time, have you been managing to get planning in and during that?
Yeah, we've been dealing with, so like this was one of the things about, because a lot of people are like, well, hang on a minute, Richard's putting all the money in, what are you bringing to the project? And I'm like, without me, there is no project, basically, and Richard's very aware of that. Richard, we both have this agreement that without each other, this wouldn't work or happen, because Richard isn't property related, he's not in the property world. So one of the things is for me to deal with all of the legislation and the planning and all that sort of thing. And actually the planning officer and the enforcement officer, because it is still technically, so it's C4 in Article 4, and the planning officers have actually agreed, and building regs have agreed to keep it as C4.
So it was C4 when you bought it,
C4.
And that's an HMO, planning classification.
Yeah, so it was an existing HMO already. Adding the kitchenettes doesn't change anything to that element of it, so that was fine. And it can't go to C3B because our charity doesn't have a live-in care element to it. Now, this is again one of the other things with regards to the SAS, and a lot of people are saying this isn't SASable because there is no live-in care element. The trustee, and we all had again another meeting about this, and I'm saying this is a supported living property, and basically they have agreed that, and I don't know if this is actually sets a bit of a precedent really to change the way people think about it, but each tenant have that they each have their own individual care package. So everybody is assessed, everybody is given the help, everybody is given funding, etc. So just because the person doesn't live in the property, they are all encompassed under a care package basically, and because of that, then the trustee has allowed that to be investable basically.
Okay. So
that was quite a big step. Without that,
yeah, there's different, you know, the SAS stuff isn't terribly clear, is it at all? And certainly I know a lot of SAS trustees who talk about it having to be regulated care, so you know that it has to be an element of personal care or highly regulated care, you know, so if you've managed to kind of bypass that a little bit, that's quite an interesting approach to it. But I guess if he's actually doing this as a third party loan, then it doesn't have to, he's not got an ownership stake in that, so actually you're probably you could, that doesn't, you know, that excludes it from that anyway, doesn't it?
Yeah, and that kind of does protect the SAS a little bit in that area. So it has kind of worked out that in the event somebody in HMRC turned around and went, oh, hang on a minute, this isn't actually SASable, well, then it's still a third party loan, so he's still protected. So in that sense, it works really well. And so basically we're 50% ownership, 50% share of profits. And yeah, so he's got his interest that he's getting on his SAS pension, building the spot up. Hopefully, and we've just had the mortgage offer through, and we'll come to that in a minute, because that hasn't been easy. Hopefully to go again on another project, you know, we know what we can achieve now. So the idea is to take the money that we've gotten back out of the company, out of the property, and hopefully find another one.
Brilliant. Well, that's good. So from the property requirements, so they wanted them to be small, sort of self-contained mini, you know, kitchenettes, kind of almost mini studio kind of model, isn't it, I guess? Were there any other adaptations that were needed to the property?
Well, only in the sense of meeting minimum room sizes. So for example, 2 rooms next to each other, they were just about lettable on a normal HMO. They were about 7 square meters. So what we did was we actually knocked those through into one big room, took a little bit out to create a separate utility room, because we were aware that obviously without a kitchen, there's nowhere for tumble dryers and washing machines and stuff. So we had to create a utility room for them to be able to use. So we had to do some, again, 2 of the rooms upstairs were quite small. So actually what we've done is we've put a doorway in between the 2 of them. So one of them is a kitchen and the other one is the bedroom. Because what the charity required is they didn't need cooking, living and sleeping. They just required sleeping and cooking. Right. Now, minimum room sizes, that would require 13 square meters. And so my argument to the planning officer, and he did initially say no, but I actually went back and argued the point, and I actually managed to get the senior planning officer to change his mind, which there seems to be a bit of a pattern occurring in this story in regards to that.
There's some tenacity there to get.
Oh my goodness, that's the third of this project, I think, is tenacity. And yeah, so basically we agreed that because to have a living and cooking is 11 square meters. And I said, so if you were to just look at sleeping and cooking, then technically that should still be 11 square meters. And they agreed it. Actually, all of the rooms are over that anyway. But it's just understanding a lot about what the minimum room requirements are regarding planning and that sort of thing. So that was sort of a learning curve as well. Building regs, they were all happy. They just wanted to know, they've just had to sign off plumbing and electrics. So we've put induction hobs into all of the rooms, obviously to reduce down any risk of fire, etc. All of the rooms now have mechanical ventilation, so they're all automatic and all in the bathrooms. So in the event it instantly detects smoke or moisture, then the fan turns on. So there's no risk of them leaving that running. We did add in another toilet and another shower room as well, just so that we could break that down so it was only 2 people to 1 bathroom area. But yeah, other than that, then it was just full refurbishment throughout, redecorated, new flooring, LVT flooring throughout, so that it's easily cleanable for everybody. So yeah.
How many different people are living there?
So it's going to be for 6 people. And our charity work with what they call vulnerable chaotic. So that's homeless or people who are on a programme for drug and alcohol rehabilitation. It should be temporary, so short-term temporary, about 6 to 9 months, but potentially they have people that might be there for a bit longer than that before they're able to go on. They find that some people just are never in that position to actually go into their own permanent housing, which is sad, but they're thrilled with what we've produced. We're delighted to be able to hand it over to them. So eventually.
Fantastic. And is your intention to work with them again going forward when you say you want to do more?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've already been talking about when we were actually handing over the keys on that day, we were saying, right, okay, what's next? What do you need? And they provide all different sorts of level of care. So, but they're looking potentially for somewhere where they can have about 12 self-contained units for emergency, so instant emergency overnight housing. And that is very, very short term. So we're kind of looking at that at the moment. So lots of opportunities with regards to those projects. There is actually a building in Cheltenham that we're looking at the moment, which is 12 individual flats.
Great.
Which would work. And they're also looking at single units outside of Cheltenham, so in Forest of Dean, those kind of areas. So we're kind of looking to see what we can do with them. But we're also now looking to build our relationships with other charities as well. So we know how to work with charities, we know how to work with the different departments, planning, etc. So now we just, so one of my goals this year is to actually house another 10 vulnerable people. So that's what we're currently working on, as well as my other big goal this year is to produce housing, accessible housing. I think it was Guy who was on your podcast, and ever since I heard that episode, it's just struck a chord with me as to how under marketed or how bad the supply is. So we're looking to do that as well.
Oh, brilliant. That's cool. That's something that's definitely needed.
I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, it is. And I think it's something that people don't really appreciate, the opportunity that's there really from a rental point of view. There's a big rental.
Well, we're looking at everything from HMOs, and we've spoken to people who feel, so younger people who can't live with their friends because the house doesn't accommodate, there's no HMOs that can accommodate them. So having HMOs which can accommodate young professionals, family homes. I've been visiting people in wheelchairs in their homes to get a real understanding of what they need, and it's substandard living quality. It's the substandard quality of their life. Just because they don't have their needs met, it's just not excusable really in this day and age.
No, it's really poor.
Yeah. So, but also in the supported living arena as well, we'd love to work with charities who also need accessible housing for their tenants. So I'm working with a fantastic architect, Amy, who's a specialist in accessible design, and it really has opened my mind into the opportunities that are out there. But again, it just ticks that helping others box.
Now, you were talking about the financing of this property, and you're going to explain what's happened with that. Do you want to talk us through that, Ruth, as well?
Now I've gotten over the pain. From the beginning, it was always going to be a problem because I've gone into this all guns blazing, and so I do not have my 12 months worth of experience as a landlord. Now, for those that don't understand what that means, is when you have a supported living property, and I'm sure if you've listened to Lisa's podcast, this will have come up many times, but you need to have a specialist product that would allow you to have that in place, and they want you to have 12 months worth of experience. Now, I have a fantastic broker who has gotten around that because of my other 2 HMOs. He's kind of gone to some lenders and gone, well, this HMO she's got 6 months, and this HMO she's got 6 months. Collectively, that makes 12 months worth of experience.
Brilliant. I love the creativity.
And they've accepted it.
Oh, good.
So we started that process back in November. Because basically to purchase the property, so Richard put the deposit in and funded the refinance and stamp duty and all the fees. So we had to then obviously get the rest of the money from a lender. That had to go onto a bridge. So we used a bridging loan, which we knew potentially we could get off around about now. We're hoping a bit sooner. The lenders, so that was all fine. We started the process. I'm trying to remember all of the different pain points now. But basically the biggest pain point that we've come up against was we had the property valued. It was close to what I wanted anyway. It was about 10 grand out. So, in the grand scheme of down valuations.
Yeah, it's not bad at the moment.
No, it's fine. But he made one small comment on his valuation, which was that in the event of a repossession, because of the lease in place, the property would take 12 months to sell. And because of that comment, the underwriter for the lender just went, oh, that's a bit high risk. So we're going to reduce down your loan to value from 75% to 65%.
Ooh.
The mortgage offer came in and I was all excited. And I was just, about to sign it and stuff. And I thought, oh, hang on, just double check exactly how much they're giving you. And it was about 50 grand short.
Ooh. Now, so they've said that their take on it is it's going to take 12 months to be able to evict people. And the point of that is that if you were to default on this lease and they were to have to repossess the property, that's what they're looking at, isn't it? They're looking at protecting themselves. So they need to be able to know that they can repossess this property and they can then get hold of it and sell it on and get their money back, essentially, is what the bank's looking to do, isn't it?
And we all know that the lenders are very risk adverse with regards to this sector because they don't want to be seen to be evicting vulnerable people. However, they wouldn't necessarily be in that position. So, and we were saying earlier, so I then had to go back. I then got hold of the valuer directly to find out exactly what his thoughts were with regards to making that one comment. That's all it was. No hindsight, no evidence to it. And I said to him, firstly, if the mortgage doesn't get paid because I haven't passed on those payments, but the lease is still good and it's still in place, then the property is actually worth more as a going concern. We're making 28, 29% ROI on this property, and it's C4, and it's in Article 4, saying that I could literally get rid of this property tomorrow. I could probably sell it overnight because it's such a good performer.
And people like to buy going concerns. That's the thing that the underwriters haven't quite caught up with, is the fact that actually it has a value with the tenants in situ, just selling it on to another landlord. Yeah,
exactly. So and we were saying, in this market, nothing takes 12 months to sell. Be lucky if you could get hold of anything that's been on for longer than 12 days. But so there was that. So I said, firstly, there's that element, plus all the tenants are on a common license, which means that in the event they need to be evicted, there's no reason to go through court. They can do it without that. So tenants can be evicted very quickly. If the lease is in place, it actually holds its value and is a sellable product. Or in the event that the charity don't pay their lease, we have a clause in the contract for where we can take the property back after 21 days. So we're fully protected with regards to that scenario. And he said, okay, I understand now why you didn't ask those questions in the first place, but there we go. And he changed his mind and changed his report and issued that to the lender. We then had to get the underwriter to agree it. But yeah, I just got my mortgage offer yesterday, so back up to 75%.
And it's back up to 75. That just demonstrates, though, the lack of understanding of this sector, doesn't it? The lack of understanding of leases, the fact that they don't really understand. A lot of people, even the people doing the valuations, sometimes just really don't get it, They
don't understand it. And Richard and I, we feel so passionate about this area because we have come up against so many walls with regards to the legals and the funding element of these properties. We've got a 5-year, and one thing I haven't said is the lease is on a 5-year lease. We've got a break clause at 2.5 years. The rent is 500 and what was it, £53 a room or something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head now. More than the market rate for that room. Plus, we're not paying bills. It's on a full repair lease. They're paying the building insurance. They're covering that. So really, the only outgoing we have is our mortgage. And that's why I'm able to do these projects with joint venture partners, because there is still enough in there for everybody. So from a risk point of view, I don't understand why lenders are not seeing how that compared to me buying a buy-to-let property where the tenants might lose their job and can't afford to pay the rent. Why is that a better option than a guaranteed rent for 5 years?
It's so frustrating. Mark and I have so many conversations, you know, we talk regularly to the institutions about this, and we're really trying to campaign and change it, because it's just like, can you not see this is such a good strategy? Your investments are safer in this way than they are in others.
So much safer.
But I think it also demonstrates, though, to providers, sometimes some of the providers I speak to kind of just like, well, why are property investors so frustrating to work with? Why can they not? And actually, you know, like you've demonstrated, you and Richard have come into this fully committed to it, but actually have just met hurdle after hurdle after hurdle. And I think it's really important to kind of demonstrate that actually it's not as straightforward. It should be straightforward, but it really isn't.
It should be really straightforward, you know, but yeah, I've hit so many, there have been so many hurdles right from the beginning, where I think if I wasn't so tenacious, I would totally have just gone, do you know what, this is just too much stress. And it has been majorly stressful. Even, you know, a week before we were ready to sign the lease over, we got a leak in the roof. And it's like, oh my God, and I had to have the whole gully done on the roof, you know, from things like that. And, you know, yeah, there have just been so many different things. If anyone follows me on social media, you'd have seen me pulling my hair out. But
you're reaching that point now where it's done. The project's done. People are moving in. You can really see the impact that's had, but also you'll start seeing the financial benefit. Now you can get it refinanced and everything else, and it will start paying, and you know, you can go on to that kind of breathing.
Yeah, it's going to be quite a novel feeling, actually, not wondering, oh my God, can I meet, you know, bridging loan payments and all of it. It's a really lovely feeling, I won't lie.
No, that's fabulous. Ruth, thank you for sharing your story. It's been really lovely to hear all about how your experience with it. Thank you for talking it through with us.
You're very welcome. Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you.